What's going on, guys? It's DigiWatch TCG coming to you with a brand new video. Now today I'm going to be going over the top meta decks from every color from BT10, as well as some of my personal picks for cards I'm going to be picking up or cards I'm looking forward to in BT10 as well, for either existing decks or just to splash into some of the cards, some of the decks that we're going to be getting here. With that said, please like, subscribe, leave your thoughts below on what you'd like to see next. So starting off, we're going to go into our reds here, and the big card here we're going to be talking about is the Shopmon deck. Now, I'm not going to go over every single card. This is not a set review, but I'm going to go over a few different principles of the deck and why it is going to be meta. So, yes, we'll start with just like the regular Digimon and Shopmon. And Shopmon here has, we're going to pretty much look at the save mechanic here. So this is an on-deletion effect, meaning only when it's deleted by an effect do you save it, meaning you put it underneath one of your Tamers, which is the basic of save here. I'll go over the Tamers in just a moment, but basically this one is very important because this one gives your Shopmon cards rush, which is a big component of the win con for this deck. It's basically a stronger version of the rush decks that we used to play in older formats, just with more likelihood that it's going to survive. So we do have the Shopmon here. That's really the only low-level Digimon I want to talk about. There are other ones. There's Starmons, Darulamon, and there is Ballistamon and Sparrowmon that you can play in this deck. But I don't really want to go over each one of them just because I don't want to make this a 20-minute video. So I guess it's more important right now to go over the Tamers just to explain more about the same mechanic. So these Tamers have the effect of when playing one of your Digimon with Digicross requirements. This one specifically, Taiki, has this. By suspending this Tamer, you can also place cards from under your Tamers into the Digivolution sources by Digicrossing. So that's important because the save mechanic basically allows you to keep Digimon in a safe area unless possibly they're going to get destroyed by an effect. But if you are able to keep them safe underneath the Tamer, essentially you're going to be able to go into your bigger boss monsters much easier. You also have the other cards that you usually play in the deck, which is Akari, which basically if you play a Digimon with cross hearts in its name, you can draw one, and then Zenjiro, which basically gains you a memory. These ones are very important. This is a big part of the cross hearts type of strategy. You also have this one over here, which can do the same thing that Taiki does, but it's also a memory tamer as well. So this might be something some people want to splash into their deck. I don't know exactly how to pronounce the name, so I'm going to call it Kira. I don't know how to say it, sorry. But going back to the Shopmon strategy, now that you know all that, I'm going to go over one more big component, which is the Digicross component. Now with Digicross, basically what you're doing is you're putting the listed Digimon underneath these at Digivolution sources when you hard play these bigger boss Digimon. So this is a 9 cost to play normally, but if you are able to put cards from the field, your hand, or if you have a Tamer that has the ability to put cards underneath it, you can use that to reduce the cost by 2. For example here, 2 for each one you place underneath it. So really, if you have all 4 of these in your hand or underneath Tamers or in play, you can play this for 1 cost. Now the big thing here is Shopmon having Rush, because that gives your Shopmon X4 and X5 the ability to swing into your opponent's Digimon or security the same turn they come out, which is a big reason why they're good and why essentially it's a rush component. Now this is an Shopmon X4 has the ability to draw 2, but that's not really the big part of this that we want to look at, is the end of the attack. So when you attack your opponent's security or you attack your opponent's Digimon, at the end of the attack, you can put all of the sources underneath the Shopmon X4, underneath one of your Tamers, to unsuspend that Tamer. So basically you would swing, let's say it would be it survives the check to your opponent's security, then you can place the 4 underneath here, underneath your Taiki, which may be tapped already since you were able to play out Shopmon X4 in the first place. So then you would be able to go to your Shopmon X5, which basically is very similar, except it has obviously a different effect. So you could place the 4 that you had underneath your Tamer or in your hand or whatever back underneath and play Shopmon X5 with also Rush, and also this one has security +1 plus blocker. And it also has material save 3, meaning when it would be destroyed, you can place 3 of the requirements back underneath the tamer. So you can go into X5, swing into your opponent's security for 2 more checks, and if it dies on the second check, you place them underneath your another tamer, and you can just hard play, keep going back and forth between Shopmon X4, Shopmon X5, and dwindle your opponent's security to nothing. That's basically the big mechanic out of the Shopmon deck, and this is why it's going to be considered a tier top deck. It's very fast. It's very scary to be able to essentially do 3 checks in 1 turn to your opponent's security and not really worry about them getting deleted because you're able to save most of them. So that is a big part of the strategy. Now there are the X4B and X5B, and I haven't seen many people play this honestly in the deck in the Japanese format or on Digimon Meta list or anything like that. Sometimes they play one copy, but usually it's the X5 and the X4 that are winning lists. Now, coming back to going to our blue. We do have the mechanic, the one that's I think is going to be personally the top deck out of the blue, is going to be the Cross Hearts Blue Flare. Sorry, not Cross Hearts, Blue Flare Decker Greymon deck. So basically, the whole mechanic over here is similar to Shopmon in where you can save. You can place them underneath. Where is he? Christopher over here. Christopher is the same kind of effect as Taiki, except it's also a memory tamer. And really, this is the only one you're playing in the deck. You don't really play any of these other tamers. So you basically have the Gaussmon here, the Greymon. You have the Decker Dramon, and then the Male Bird Dramon as your main 4s that you're going to be saving underneath your tamers. You also have Metal Greymon, which is really good over here. It has Rush, and then 3 of your opponent's Digimon get stunned, essentially, if you Digivolve it. Or, sorry, not Digivolve, play it with the reduced cost, of course, with Greymon and Male Birdramon, making it only a 3 cost to play if you play both of them. And it has Rush, and that's pretty cool. Honestly, Metal Greymon is a very cool Digimon, in my opinion, just being able to do that. And if you combine this with things like Sora and Joe being able to strip sources, it makes it just that much easier to kind of get rid of a lot of your opponent's sources and be able to stun more and more Digimon. The big boss out of this is Decker Greymon, though, because you're able to go Metal Greymon plus Decker Dramon, and then on play and Digivolving, you can place 1 Digimon card with Blue Flare in its traits from your hand or from one of your tamers to the bottom of the sources. Then, if you have a Decker Dramon in your Digivolution cards, one of your opponent's Digimon cannot attack or block until the end of your opponent's turn. I think that's a very strong effect, and you could also Digivolve this just regularly for 2 over the Metal Greymon, which is pretty good. And basically, yeah, it's a big stun deck. That's really what you're doing. You can do it on attack with some cards like the Male Birdramon, or you can do it on Digivolve with the Metal Greymon or the Decker Greymon. Now going on to yellow. Oh, and one more thing. I'm going to talk about just one more thing over here. We have an amazing new blue option. This one actually gets you 2 blue flare cards out of 6 cards that you look at the top of your deck, and then it lets you play a Kirari among them without paying the memory cost if you do pull into them. So that is actually pretty cool. Plus, it gets you a gain 2 memory later down the line. Now, that said, we're going to go into yellow now, and there's not much to talk about with yellow because yellow is a little bit all over the place in this set. It gets, I think the main thing is because a lot of these cards are for the Cross Hearts archetype, that you're not really getting too much. Now, you do get Pulsemon. We get a little bit extra Pulsemon support, but the big one I think out of this yellow set is going to be the Renamon, just extra support for Renamon, Cubimon, and Taomon. But the big one I guess everyone is looking forward to is Sukuyamon Maid Mode. Now, Maid Mode has this really crazy effect. I think it's one of the best effects we have. We're going to have a really good level 6 of being able to Digivolve, when Digivolving, you can Digivolve from a 5 or a 6, by the way. You can Digivolve, and then you can use a plugin card or an option card with 5 or less from your hand, ignoring the color restrictions and without paying its memory cost. So that first off is really great because there are some really busted cards, no pun intended. Literally, some cards like Sunrise Buster, for example. that allow you to delete a lot of Digimon with minus 3,000 for every Tamer, or other cards, of course, as well. Holy Flame, for example, is another one. But it also has this other amazing effect of being able to put the card that you just used on the top of your security stack. So imagine you give a Digimon minus 3 security, they bring out a new Digimon, and then they swing into security, and everything else gets another minus 1 security on as well. So that is really good. And then when digivolving, you can digivolve into another Sakuyamon in your hand. Specifically Sakuyamon, keep in mind in your hand, it can't be another main mode, but you can always digivolve on top of that one. That's Sakuyamon. So you are able to do multiple checks in a turn, because I think the combo they're wanting you to do with this is go Sakuyamon, main mode, swing attack with the main mode, digivolve into the Sakuyamon that lets you add a plugin from your trash to your hand, and then when you do, you unsuspend your Sakuyamon. So then you do the check with Sakuyamon, and then you digivolve into another main mode, and then essentially you continue that loop for a bit. As one of the ways of essentially killing your opponent. So that's just something to try out, and I really do like this card over here. It's going to give you a lot of versatility in yellow and how you want to play it. You could give it jamming, you could give it security +1. You could do a lot with it. I think this is going to be a really good deck that a lot of people are excited for. Now for green, you basically have this card over here, which is the Bloomed Lordmon deck. Basically, you're going to be playing a deck with a lot of plants, vegetation, or fairies in them. And the way you want to do this is you want them suspended, and then you will digivolve into your Bloomed Lord Nightmon. Hopefully, you actually digivolve into it, and you could suspend one of your Digimon. You could suspend himself as well, keep in mind. And then what you can do actually is you gain 1 memory. When you can spend one of your opponent's sorry, I'm just reading through this. So you gain 1 memory, and then when you gain 2 or more memory with this effect, unsuspend this Digimon, and this Digimon gains piercing. So the more you have, the more memory you're going to gain that are suspended. And then the other effect is for every 2 of your suspended Digimon, this Digimon gets 2,000 DP and a security +1. So essentially, it's a version of OTK, I think. In order to essentially, just delete your opponent's Digimon, gain memory, pierce. You can give it so much DP if you go very wide, and I think that's what's scary about it, is that this deck kind of wants to go tall, but it also wants to go wide. So that's what the scary part of Bloomed Lord Nightmon is. Or sorry, I keep calling it the wrong name. Bloomed Lordmon. So yeah, that is green. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I don't know too much, honestly, about green, but I know that the strategy is basically going into Sunflowmon as one of them, as you get to draw 1, and you can go into a Jartarmon, and basically you can gain a memory when one of your Digimon becomes suspended, so you can gain 2 memory, actually, or more than 2 memory. So memory tamers might be very important against this deck over here. Going into our black, we have the Dark Nightmon deck here. This is really good. It's another Digicross requirement. Basically what you want to do with this is you are going to play a lot of Skull Nightmons and a lot of Deadly Axemons in your deck, and you can Digicross 2 to make this only a 4 cost to play, and when you do, you can digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon, and then if you Digicross with the 2 materials, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 5 or less, which is good, because basically that's saying that if I put your guy to a champion level, I can delete it. And then if this would be deleted, this is actually a really good effect. When the Digimon would be deleted, by returning 1 level 4 or lower black Digimon from the Digivolution sources to your hand, which means that essentially you're saving that one, you can play 1 Skull Nightmon or Deadly Axemon from the other, like the Digivolution card, without paying its memory cost. So essentially, let's say you had the Deadly Nightmon in your underneath it, as well as maybe a Skull Nightmon. Now these are both from BT7 actually, but you also have this new one over here, which is Skull Nightmon Mighty Axmo, which is basically a searcher version over here that you can go into, but it's also considered Skull Nightmon and Deadly Axemon, so it can be treated as both. So you play that as well as the other ones, and then one of them can go back to hand while the other one is played for free, and then you just go into another Dark Nightmon essentially when you're ready to. So it's going to be a very good deck, I think, in BT 10, just being able to de-digivolve, it's such a strong component of it anyway. So I'm excited to see where this deck goes. And then of course they have the X antibody version as well. This is actually an interesting thing because you can digivolve for 4. Most of the time you've seen a lot of the digivolve for 1 or 2 or even just 3, but you actually still digivolve for quite a big cost going into Dark Knightmon this way. And then you return basically 1 black or purple Digimon other than Dark Knightmon X Antibody from your treasure hand. Then when this Digimon has Dark Knightmon or X Antibody in its Digivolution sources, you can delete 1 Tamer and unsuspend this Digimon. And then on deletion, you can play 1 Dark Knightmon from your trash without paying its memory cost. So all that is really good. But that deletion actually is an interesting wording because it says delete 1 Tamer. It doesn't say your opponent's Tamer. It says any. And I'm going to explain why that's important because you have this one here, Nene, which essentially you're able to delete, and on deletion it has gain 2 memory. So you can keep it your turn, you can gain extra memory, and you can unsuspend the Dark Knightmon X Antibody in order to swing more checks at your opponent's security. So there's a big win con for that right there. I think that's a pretty interesting concept for a card and a play style for black in BT10. So now going into purple, our last one over here is the Bagra Army, and there are a lot of cards with Bagra Army, and we get future support now, if you don't know, in the future with it as well. So this are the first, I guess you could say the first wave of cards, and we have 2 big boss monsters here, which is the Tactimon and the Blastmon. Now, both of them are really good, and this is definitely a new style for purple to be playing. It's a little bit more responsive to what your opponent's trying to do, and it's a direct counter, I think, to the Cross Hearts. So I'm not going to go over each one. You just got to know that most of these guys do have saves, so you can save them underneath the E1 here, or right here. And you have the bigger guys here, Shopmon, that if you trash a card from their Digivolution sources, you can gain 1 memory. And on your opponent's turn, basically this is very, like I said, very responsive. You can gain memory basically if your opponent does something that is pretty much very common in our mechanics. So I'm going to use Mad Leomon to explain my point. So opponent's turn, when your opponent adds when the number of cards in your opponent's hand is increased by an effect by trashing 1 of the Digivolution cards, or your cards, your opponent trashes the same amount of cards that they added to their hand. So let's say they played a card that essentially lets them draw 2, then you can actually detach one of the Digivolution sources over here, trashing it, and your opponent has to trash the same, plus whatever you trash, mostly likely stuff like Chumon or the Troopmon over here, will gain you 1 memory. So that's the concept behind the Bagra Army in this set. And you do put them underneath U over here. U has an interesting effect that if you would play a level 4 or higher Digimon with Bagra Army and traits, by placing 3 Digimon, purple Digimon cards from underneath your Tamer or himself in that Digimon's Digivolution cards, reduce the play cost of that Digimon by 2 for each one placed. So this is a big, in a sense, like more like Mega Zoo, in a sense that you're playing it, but you're actually getting a little bit of a reduced cost from it. So Blastmon over here has the effect of having Rush, so it can attack the same turn it's played. It also has Blitz if 3 cards are added underneath its Digivolution sources, or if it has 3 Digivolution cards underneath it, it gains Blitz. On the opponent's turn, when it attacks by trashing 1 of your opponent's Digivolution cards, you can delete 1 of their level 4 Digimon. Tactimon has a similar kind of effect that you can on play bring 2 of your Bagra Army cards from the trash back, and they both gain blocker. And then on your opponent's turn, when a card would be trashed by an effect, you can trash cards from himself as well. So that's pretty much the archetype over there. And then I forgot to say, U has this other effect of all turns. When a purple card is placed under the Tamer, you can gain 1 memory and draw 1. So essentially, it makes your opponent have to really think of what they're doing, because if they are going to be playing cards that let you draw 1, or cards that are being able to be put underneath you. They're going to keep you losing memory, and that might end up passing their turn faster than they think. So that is all the archetypes. Now I'm going to go over my top 5 cards. Now I did forget one more. I keep forgetting. This one here, I'm just going to say this is essentially a substitute for any Digicross requirement for the Shopmon deck. This might not be played heavily, but it might be played as like maybe like a 1 or 2 cost in there. Or say 1 or 2 copies in per deck. Now I'm going to go over just my top picks for the decks here, and that will be it for this video. So starting with red, I think with red, actually my favorite top pick is going to be the Shopmon GX. If you don't know what this card does, essentially you Digivolve onto a Royal Knight or a black or red Digimon, and when you do, you can place underneath it a Royal Knight from your trash or from your hand with a 13 play cost or less. And then it gains the Digimon that you put underneath it, Digivolving effect. Also, it gets Blitz. Also, it has Piercing, Blocker, and Security +1 for every Royal Knight Digivolution card it has. So you can do a lot of checks to your opponent's security, and there's a lot of versatility with this card because a lot of people are going to be playing it in Chessmon or Gengokumon. But you could also play it in other variants. Whatever basically has a Royal Knight with it in its name may be a possible way of going into this card. So that's, I think, a really interesting deck design. So that's one thing here. Now going into blue as my top pick, honestly, I think the whole blue it's okay, this set. I'm not a huge fan of every single thing, but if I had to pick one card in general, I think I think it's called Thesismon. Basically, it's a sense of a Rookie Rush or Champion Rush type of thing where you're being able to draw cards from its effect and then being able to unsuspend it by trashing 2 cards from your hand. This is kind of like using the whole Jellymon aspect we got last set, where you're able to trash cards from your hand to unsuspend. I'm not sure if it was Jellymon. I think it was there was a level 4 that did the same thing in BT9. But this one is a really great artwork regardless. I do love the C, and I just like the artwork in general. If anything else, it's because of the artwork. For yellow, I would say that my favorite card out of this is going to be Venusmon. So Venusmon has this really great effect that all your opponent's Digimon gain -1 security when Digivolving, and then your opponent's Digimon with security attack can't attack this Digimon with any one Digivolving when attacking effects are also not activated. So it's just really good against OTK strategies or decks that give additional security checks to itself. So I think that's just a very interesting card as a floodgate type of card, being able to stop your opponent from doing shenanigans and being able to OTK you. So that's my personal pick for yellow. For green, honestly, I'm not really, again, huge fan of green, but I guess I would say I'm a fan of the Gammamon card. So I would say that just the Gammamon over here, the Wezen Gammamon card is interesting. Just having Piercing and Digivolving from Gammamon for 2 cost is kind of cool. But again, I'm not a huge fan of green, so I apologize. Not many cards I can call a favorite of. For black, though, I'm definitely going to say Gengoku X. This one has a really great effect. Not only can you Digivolve for 1 over Gengoku, but also has Blocker, and then it gets itself protection because when you Digivolve, you can Digivolve 1 Digimon card with Sistermon in its name. Sorry, you can play 1 Digimon card with Sistermon in its name from your hand or trash without paying its memory cost. Then if Gengoku or a Sistermon is in play, then you can, until the end of your turn, all your Digimon get 2000 DP, and your opponent's effects can't return them to hands or decks or reduce their DP. I just think that's a very good protection effect. I really, really do like protection effects like this, and this is definitely one I'm really excited for. For purple, I guess my favorite is actually going to be Beelzemon, because I'm a huge Beelzemon fan, and I do like the effect over here of trashing 3 from the top of your deck when playing it or when Digivolving. And then for every 10 cards in your trash, you can delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. So this gives you the opportunity to get rid of wide boards rather than like tall stacks. What more about this card I like is the end of attack, as you could go into blast mode over this, and then you can gain additional memory at the end of your attack to continue your turn, which I think is really, really good for purple. I would say, like, just in general white, this one is really good, just being able to look at your opponent's security, just know what you're about to face, and then be able to trash the card that gives you the most problems. I think that's just really, really powerful, and I expect to see a lot of this in BT10, in like anything that plays Omnimon. Lastly, I'm going to just go over my my personal pick for the options, and I only have 2 of them here that I'm really going to pick, and that is the Brave Claw, I think it's called. Just for the fact that you can put a card with Gammon's name underneath one of your Gammon cards. Yeah, I think this by placing one Digimon card with Gammon in his name to the bottom of one of your Digivolution stacks. So this is any stack, keep in mind. Draw 1. So I think this card may see future playability in different decks. I do think this is a really good card, though. And then you have Second Meppa, which is also a personal pick of mine. And it's, while you have a card with Royal Knights in its traits, you can play this card without meeting the color requirement. You can basically unsuspend one of your Digimon, and then that Digimon gets, if it's Justmon GX, you can activate one of the one Digivolving effects. So that is basically the ability of saying, hey, I'm going to use the Justmon GX effect again, which I think is really, really scary, actually, when you think about it. Saying, oh, well, I just need 3 to basically make Justmon GX like an unstoppable Juggernaut again. Yeah, I think that card is going to be broken being played with Justmon GX. But that's all I have for you today. I hope it was helpful. I know it went a little longer than I really wanted it to go, but let me know what you think. What are you most excited for from BT10? Is there anything I missed on this list? Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a great one.